Yo, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Talk Celtics. As usual, I'm your boy Adam Taylor from USA Today, SB Nation, and the Celtics Chronicle newsletter. Sign up, show love, links in the description. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. What's poppin', Billy?
What's up, everybody?
It's off-season time, baby, so rumor mill's going wild. There's some news, some updates from Shams, and then we just need to talk some Celtics hoops, right? It's been about a week since we jumped on a mic. Obviously, I've upgraded my setup a little bit. We wanted to make sure we didn't let it go too long. So first things first, Jaylen Brown just underwent successful, and I think that's the key word in all of this discussion, successful arthroscopic knee surgery because of that meniscus tear that he was playing through. Celtics expect him to be back before the start of the season. They're expecting him to be back for training camp. I know you kind of did some research, Billy, on exactly what that type of surgery is and what that entails. So go for it, man. Break it down for us, baby.
Yeah, if I butcher this, I apologize. I'm not a doctor. I just, play one in my spare time. But from what I understand, it's a pretty simple thing. It's called a debridgement. And what they do is a lot of times with these meniscus tears, they try to repair them. And there's ones that you can't really get to or you can't repair. So what they do is they just take out all the bad tissue, all the damage, all the crap. Basically, it's like a cleanup job. They send in the cleaner, they get all the crap out, and then you are good to go. It's about a 12-week recovery, which puts him back on the court well before training camp, a few weeks ago, basically middle of August. So he'll have plenty of time to kind of ramp back up. But it seems like a good thing that he chose to do it because Jaylen has always been like kind of a skeptical guy. I mean, most players are very skeptical, go under the knife. Nobody wants to if they don't have to. They like to get second, third, fourth opinions. I think the Kawhi thing started that where he got some bad info from probably the Spurs. And you could argue it set back his career. So everybody's very careful on these kind of things. But it does seem like it was something that had to be done. And it's so good that he did it now. I will say, the devil's advocate argument is this basically means he's not getting traded because nobody's going to trade for him while he's recovering from surgery. But I don't really think that way. I don't think that's why he did. I think he did it because he wants to be the best he can be and get back on the court healthy.
Yeah, this isn't the season where you want him coming in managing an injury. And you never want that ever, especially when you're a contending team. But you can kind of compartmentalize like, okay, we're going to get Jaylen at 90% for the year because he's dealing with this knee injury. He's going to have to take time off from here and there, maybe take a few possessions off here and there. He doesn't have that luxury this time around because of where we are with Tatum's injury, because of where the Celtics are as a team right now and all the question marks that are hanging over them. That's not an opportunity for him that he can kind of lean into. He needed to go and get this surgery done because he's the guy that's going to have to lead this team. I'm currently, by the time this is released, I would have just released my player grades for forwards over on the Celtics Chronicle. And one of the things that I noted about Brown was he's going to be facing more pressure and more attention from every team in the league now because he's that number one guy. And he's done that for small spurts when Tatum sat out games or, when Tatum's gone to the bench during a game and Brown's leading that second unit. But doing it for small stretches and doing it for an entire year are completely different. And having him at 100% is vital, especially if the Celtics still feel like, hey, the East is quite weak. We can still be a reasonably tough team to deal with. Do you know what I mean? And Brown's going to have to be the forefront of that. So I was completely on board when I read it of, okay, the other downside that no one's kind of looked at yet is there's not really going to be any improvements to his game this year because he's going to spend it rehabbing, right? Might be stronger, might look a bit bigger. But year after year since Brown's entered the league, he's always added or tweaked a part of his game. He's one of those guys, they say success isn't linear. They say growth isn't linear, success too, but in NBA, growth isn't linear. Brown's one of the few where it actually has been linear, and it's been every single year. There's been a notable improvement in his game. And this will probably be the first time in his career that he comes into a season pretty much the same version of himself that he left the year before. And that's going to be interesting too.
Well, I think it'll be more his confidence and he'll be back to his old self because he was so limited last year. And we're not even just talking about the playoffs. It was in the regular season. It showed. And you could tell all that work he put in the offseason, especially to improve his playmaking, that kind of saved him because he couldn't do a lot of the other things that he was used to doing. So this might be like the most well-rounded Jaylen Brown we see with him fully healthy because he should still have all that playmaking. He should still have that great one-on-one defense. it's a wish, but I wish his off-ball defense would get better. But the train might have left the station on that one. But besides that, there's very little to criticize about Jaylen. And if he comes back a more well-rounded player, that's all NBA.
I mean, look, the on-ball defense this year took a step back from what we saw the year before. Like, I don't think it's unfair to say that when it's true. The overall offense of his was really good this year. I think that he's become very defined in the role he plays, in the type of scorer that he is. This mid-range savant, gets to the rim at will, can work out of the post quite well. He had more post-up possessions than Tatum did this past season.
I'm not surprised. I mean, that shot was money. You get him the ball with the smaller guy on him, and he shoots over him. It's pretty
He's
impressive.
a little bit of an antithesis for the way the Celtics play and the way Brown plays, and I think that's what makes him such a valuable part of this rotation. Now, one thing I do think is the way the height he can reach on the pinnacle of his jump shot makes a huge difference for Brown. And up until this season, he was getting like some good separation from defenders just from being able to jump high enough that it was tough to contest his shot at the apex of that jump. Then your knee starts to play up and you're not getting as much bounce, you're not getting as much vert. It's just a little bit easier to get a hand in someone's face to affect that release. So I'm expecting to see a little bit more separation off Brown. Maybe that fadeaway that he likes to pull is just going to be that little bit more effective, more explosive around the rim. That first step should be back as well. I think that this was a really good opportunity for him to just get healthy. And look, if he does need to sit out some training camp, even sit out a week or two, a month at most of like the regular season, but you get a 100% healthy version of JB, then I'm completely with that. I actually think that the timing of this has been fantastic because the season might be over for Boston, but technically the season's still going, so we're not even in the off season yet.
Yeah, because a lot of guys will like to wait till their vacation's over to have surgery because they don't want to do rehab while they're on the beach or, hanging with, the family, friends, all that stuff. So it's really good that he's done it since before the NBA season has officially ended. I mean, we got probably 3-4 games of the finals left, depending on how you feel about the Pacers.
I want the Pacers to win this motherfucker.
Be nice.
I'm going to be honest. I'd like it. Mainly just because I'm sick of all this Shy and Tatum talk, and I just, whatever, dude. Here's what it is. That's for someone else to discuss. I'm enjoying the finals, but I do want the Pacers to come out on top. But yeah, look, I think we've said all we can say on Brown without kind of going around in circles right now. I will throw it out to everyone that's watching. If you're still here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and then let us know what you think about JB getting this surgery. Are you worried? Is it another injury concern to have? Is anyone concerned that maybe re-aggravates that and needs surgery again? Like, usually once you start going down this surgery route, there's a chance that it kind of becomes like a consistent issue. And we know that even back when Danny Ainge was still president of basketball operations, he was talking about how Jaylen's knees and we're going to need to be kind of managed throughout the course of his career. It is what it is at this point. That's just the type of player he is as well. The one thing I do hope is that as he continues to age, his knees don't start to affect his overall athleticism, because that separation that he creates and that burst that he's got are what makes him such an important scorer and such an elite offensive guy. But overall, yeah, I think this was a great move for him.
Yeah, it had to be done. I'm glad he did it early. I mean, I wouldn't even hate if Tatum needed a debridgement kind of surgery on his wrist just to kind of clean up whatever's with that. I wouldn't mind if he did that while he's got the downtime.
Well, I mean, it's been years in the making, right? That wrist injury has been a persistent problem for a minute now. That's a really good point. And you'd hope he does that, or he's already done that. And that wouldn't even need to be reported, right? Like, you could just do that and keep it quiet and no one's going to be any wiser. And even if it did get reported, it'd fall by the wayside because all the talk's about his ankle anyway. With that being said, there was some footage of him kind of being back in the treatment facility, starting to show up on social media a little bit more, looks driven. I'm really excited to kind of see this resurgence once it happens, but I'm not holding my breath for a return next season. And to be quite honest with you, I'd actually be kind of upset if he did return. I think he needs that full year to just recover and start rebuilding strength in that leg.
The most interesting part of that story is, do you know who recorded Tatum in the training room facilities?
Wasn't it Torrey Craig?
Yeah, isn't that kind of like, that's pretty cool. Like, is that a sign he's going to be sticking around next year, or is he just getting in the time while he still can? Because I guess once the season's over, he would be not on the team.
He told Noah Dalzell from Celtics blog, I'm pretty sure it was hers, article that I read, where he said, like, hey, I don't know what the future holds, but if the opportunity to come back is there, then I'd like to do that. So, and I'm paraphrasing there, obviously, that isn't a direct quote, but it was along those lines. And I think that he was valuable enough. Like, we saw some viability there. Now, obviously, he probably looks like he's built a bit of a relationship with JT. It seems like he was a really good teammate to have around. But at the same time, the Celtics have a lot of questions that they need to answer, and Craig's going to be right at the bottom of that list. He's not going to be a priority by any stretch. And there's a lot of work to be done to even get to a point where we're talking about how to fill that 15th roster spot or 14th roster spot. There's a lot of shit that needs to happen between now and then. So that's really at the low point of like what I'm classing as a priority, right?
Yeah, and like I said, it just seems like it's more of a vibes thing. They like having him around.
Yeah,
He's
for
probably
sure.
a good practice player. Even next year, with as limited as we're going to be without Tatum, I don't see him being a rotation player.
Not at all. He just didn't have enough about him, right? Like his age has kind of sapped it a little bit. He's not the defender he once was, isn't the shooter that he once was. Still has a bit of bounce to him and can still give you some solid minutes, but it's like 4 to 8 minutes a night. And it's, again, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before you even start talking about what type of deep bench guy the Celtics need. And they need a forward, but we can get onto that in a bit. So moving on, I wanted to touch on some trade talk. I know you were telling me just before I come on there, well, start hit record, come on there, like we're fucking famous. Before we hit record, that Shams had put out kind of like who the Celtics have available, what it's going to take to price some of the bigger names away from this team. Obvious names are up there are like Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Sam Hauser. Those are your three like attainable guys. But then you mentioned he also said that if there's a Godfather offer, then who was it you said could be available? Obviously, Brown was one of them.
Brown
But I'm
and
sure you said
White. Yeah.
there we go. And that's kind of what we've been saying on this show for a while. And I'm assuming it's what everybody on every Celtic show has been saying for a minute. I don't think we were breaking any news or being groundbreaking in what we were saying there. It's very quite fucking clear that if you're gonna try and get Brown or White, you're gonna need to pay a premium. And if you're gonna try and get one of the other three guys, then negotiations are open. We're open for business. Come knock on the door, tell us what you want to pay, and we'll tell you whether or not we're willing to take it. What I do wonder is, though, who do you lean towards? Right. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because we spoke about Drew's like trade value at length. We've kind of spoke about Porzingis' trade value at length too, but we haven't touched on Sam. And the reason I want to touch on Sam Hauser is because I actually think people see him as the most logical trade chip because although he's shot quite well this year, he's down year and it was still like 41% or something stupid from deep. It does feel like he didn't have the best of seasons, and I feel like he's being punished there a little bit. But he's the youngest out the three of them. He's also the most specialized out the three of them. So do you feel like he's the most logical guy to trade? Do you even want to see him get moved? Where are you kind of sitting on this Sam Hauser trade discussion?
He's probably the easiest to trade because the contract is just so, it's so delicious. It's not that much money. It's definitely, I mean, a lot of teams can just absorb that contract. A lot of teams have trade exceptions that could just absorb it, throw some picks, throw whatever. But it's just the easiest to trade because there's one thing this league always needs. It's shooting. Every team will talk themselves into a shooter. And that's how you stay in the league for years and years. Because it's not like him getting older is going to affect his shooting. I mean, his athleticism is what it is. He's Sam Hauser. So he's always going to be this kind of player. He's just going to be able to shoot. And he's on a very friendly contract. Every team needs more threes.
But that's the problem for me, right? Like, I get that the contract's tradable, and I get that he's probably the most desirable out of everybody on this roster, but it's also he's the most desirable for the same reasons that I think he should stay around. Mazzulla's system is probably going to change a little bit, but it's not going to drastically take away from the 3-point heavy offense that we usually see. So why get rid of one of the best shooters in the NBA, especially in terms of like, he's not even a single skill guy anymore, right? Like, he's a really good defender at this point. I wouldn't say he's a great defender, but he's proven himself. He can attack the closeout off the dribble, can get to the rim, can pull up in the mid-range. He's starting to show a little bit of a screening game. He's more than just a catch and shoot threat at this point. And I feel like I would much rather keep him and keep the spacing that he provides and move on from a Drew or a Kristaps Unless if you get to a point where it's like, right, no one really wants to take Drew for what we want. I saw a report the other day saying they wanted a first round pick in return for Drew. No one wants to pay that. We're not moving on from him. Kristaps doesn't really have a big market. Then you start exploring moving Sam. I don't think he should be the first guy that you try and move. But again, I understand that maybe you just have a lot of faith in what Baylor Scheinman brings to the floor. Maybe you think that this is the right time. After all, Hauser was an undrafted rookie. You've done nothing but develop him and turn him into a champion. And his stock is quite high. Maybe this is your best chance to get a return on that investment. I get it from that standpoint. It's just kind of a tough sell for me.
Yeah, I just always trust Brad on that. He seems to sell high on guys when you don't expect it. Like, I mean, the Rob, Smart, I mean, who could have guessed that both of their careers would basically be over once they left Boston? Even like a guy like Brogdon. I think Hauser, he might have hit his peak. They know more about his medical history than we do. So, I mean, if the hip, I always heard the old saying, hips don't heal. So, like, if that's something that's just going to linger with him forever, he's not going to have the movement that he, needs to have to be an unathletic guy in the NBA, just relying on shooting. So I kind of trust Brad on that. And like I said, I always am for selling high. I mean, I could get really crazy, and you give me a good offer for even Pritchard, I would sell high on Pritchard too.
Yeah, now Pritchard is off the table. I'm not taking it. I do see what you're saying with Sam, though, especially when a big part of his game is his ability to square his hips at pace. Like, you come off a screen, the first thing you need to do is square those hips towards the rim. If your hips are straight, then everything else is going to line up. And if he doesn't have the hip flexibility or the hip speed, it's really difficult. And that goes on defense too, right? Like, a large part of being an isolation defender is your hip dexterity, your hip flexibility. The quicker you can flip those hips, the quicker you can change direction, you can slide and cut off angles. It controls a lot of what you do. Your hips are one of the most explosive parts of your body. It's just you don't see it as that way. So if the hips are an issue long term, and Brad knows that, as you said, as medical, they got far more medical info than we'll ever have. And we shouldn't have, right? It's a player's medical history. I'd never expect to just know yours. So why can I expect to know his? But in the grand scheme of things, if they do feel like Hauser's on the decline now, he's kind of hit that peak and he's going to start coming down on that roller coaster. And they're confident in what Scheinman can bring as a more complete player, give you some playmaking, some rebounding, give you a bit more, who could also shoot, say, 37 to 39%. It's a slight drop from Hauser, but not big enough to really make you kind of bulk at it. Yeah, I get that. I do get it. The question then becomes, like, who do you trade him to? What's the return that you're asking for? Obviously, you're trying to duck under the second apron, but you're going to have to take someone back, most likely. That obviously changes the calculus a little bit, because it's like, well, are we getting anybody back that we could actually use, or are we just taking dead money? So just off the top of the dome, is there any trade out there that you'd kind of be like, yeah, man, this works. I like this idea.
I keep looking at like Orlando or even Brooklyn. I kind of want a first round pick. I think that's not unrealistic for a team. I mean, it's not going to be a lottery pick or anything, but like, wherever Orlando kind of lays, I think that's actually something that could happen. Atlanta's another one that can kind of maybe something spicy if they want to give up on one of those younger guys, but I don't really see them doing that. I think they actually are building something pretty decent there, especially if they get rid of Trae Young this offseason.
Okay, that's fair. I just wanted to throw it out there. Obviously, creates good discussion. Plus, it's interesting to see where your head's at. Orlando's probably the most logical. They just need shooting. They have guys that they can give up. Atlanta actually makes sense too. I think Atlanta's going to be interesting. I saw Bill Simmons say that he wants Atlanta to start kind of stick with Trae and build around Trae a little bit more and get Trae enough shooting and enough ball handling around him that he could play off ball more. And Hauser could go some way to helping make that a legitimate kind of goal, should we say, for them. Who you get back is obviously going to be a big curveball. But moving on, I just wanted last topic I wanted to touch on was the Celtics watching Hayes Davis over in Turkey I think they were watching the EuroLeague semi-finals. 30 years old, all EuroLeague this year, along with former Celtic Carson Edwards. Different teams, obviously, but again, all EuroLeague team would be available for cheap. Someone the Celtics have had an interest in reportedly for about a decade. And the reason I found this so interesting wasn't because of Hayes Davis himself or what he can do on the court, and that's no disrespect. It's because we've consistently spoke about, and the media in general has consistently spoken about the different ways the new CBA and the second apron can affect teams. And I think that it's quite interesting that the Celtics, being one of the most prominent second apron teams, have started looking around at EuroLeague guys, right? European talent and American talent playing in Europe right now. And I said this on a Substack Live yesterday. I actually believe that one of the byproducts we might see from this new CBA is there become a higher churn in guys that have made a bit of a career out in Europe, start making it over to the NBA and start putting in a season or two and trying to prove themselves. And sometimes it's going to work. You can look at Yabusele from last season as an idea of how you can buy low on a guy in Europe. And if he pops, then obviously you need to figure out how to keep him, but you look good for doing so. And I think that churn's going to grow and grow and grow as these second apron teams look for cheap additions to their roster that can give you bang for your buck. And Hayes Davis might be a guy that benefits from that, but for Boston next season.
Yeah, I think this is actually something that's been in the Celtics DNA for a long time. Like, you look for a guy over there that's either in his prime or approaching his prime. Like, obviously Hayes would be more towards his prime. Probably this is the end, kind of last couple, the end of it. He's probably the best.
Prime's usually right what, 28 to 32 for the average NBA guy. That's kind of what I class as a average NBA prime. I mean, if you're LeBron, it was like 21 to 40. But like for a normal NBA guy, it's like 28 to 32, 33. So I'd say he's firmly like right smack in the middle of his prime years.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot for me. And like I said, bring him over to the NBA, let him get adjusted. Kind of did that with Daniel Tice, even though Tice was a little younger. But I think the peak of Daniel Tice was pretty much when we brought him over, or he started getting banged up and hit in the face every, single NBA game he's ever played.
And the war on Tice, baby.
Yep, exactly. It never ended, man. Still going.
Still going.
The one thing I thought that was really interesting about that, though, us going over there to watch him, was they sent Joe. So, like, Joe's, like, hands-on involved in the scouting. Now, is that a reflection of Austin Ainge being gone? Or is that just something that's always been a thing and we just didn't know? I kind of see it the second way. I think Joe's been hands-on with a lot of the scouting ever since he's been, second row Joe, as Bill Simmons would have called him.
I think that when you're Stevens and you got given like a myriad of guys that didn't really fit the way you wanted to play throughout his tenure as head coach, just gave small guard after small guard, took years off his life. I think that him moving into like a presidential role has allowed him to be saying to Joe, like, look, I'd rather add guys that are going to be valuable to the way you want to play, that are going to do things that build on the way this system is built. So, it's the offseason, head over to Turkey. It's a nice place. It's warm. You can have some food, watch a guy play, and then make a decision on whether you think he could fit. And obviously you can never tell everything from a game, but as you said, I do think he's been involved a lot more than just this once. It's just the first time that's really been reported on. And just to touch on it, I know the Celtics have picked up Euro guys before, Tice being one of them. But just that point I was making was just a more general, like, widespread. Don't be shocked if we see a lot more guys that have played in Europe recently kind of make their way to the NBA on like a 1-year deal, just as a way to fill out rosters now that the new CBA is there. And a lot of the usual suspects are starting to age out of the league.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of that than when we see like the old guys on like their last hurrah.
Yeah,
I think that's the one thing that's really going to, especially as it becomes more expensive to sign vets over 35, over 36, because their vet minimums keep going up and up and up. I think we're going to actually see players age out a lot earlier, and you're going to see a lot more swings like we're seeing with the Euros, for better or worse. I mean, you could argue that's a bad thing. You could argue that's a good thing.
For anyone who sees me keep using a toothpick, I bought some flavored toothpicks to try them just to keep my hands busy. And it's working.
A toothpick?
Yeah, toothpick.
Okay, I thought you said a tough pick. I'm like, is that what y'all call it over there? I like that. That's actually pretty badass.
No, it's just the accent. Tooth. Sometimes it'll come out as tough, Tough. Tough. I don't know why, but for anyone who sees a toothpick, it's flavored. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know if you're like, why is this motherfucker chewing on a toothpick? With that, I do think Hayes Davis could fit what the Celtics are looking for. I know that they worked out, and Steve Settle from Temple yesterday, actually, I was talking to his agent when the pre-draft workout was actually just after it had finished taking place. Actually, I spoke to his agent. I kind of put it out on Twitter as well. But one thing that I really did like was it's another guy that fits the Brad Stevens mold, a 5-year collegiate guy coming in, high floor, low ceiling, had a career year across the board last season, best 3-point shooting season of his career, best 2-point shooting season of his career, best rebounding season of his career, 6'11", quite slight of frame, so that'll be a concern, but can kind of do a lot of a lot of what you'd be losing from probably like a Cornet. Maybe if you lost Cornet, now he wouldn't fit that role perfectly. Cornet's a better defender, but Celtic can shoot a bit more. But it's just another guy that's going to be cheap. And what I'm trying to get at is it's not just Hayes Davis that's an option. There's guys that are going to go in the second round, like Settle, that could be an option. We're just going to see the Celtics kind of round out that end of the roster with hopefully some talent we haven't seen before that we can kind of sink our teeth into, get behind, and hopefully at least one of them pops and makes himself sustainable. We saw that with Luke. We saw that with Sam. Nimi again, not really anyone's really speaking about what's going to happen with Nimi right now, but I felt like he had a really strong start to the year, lost that roster battle with Luke, and then never really got sore again. So there's questions there, but yeah, I think there's going to be some interesting tweaks to the end of the bench. Everyone's worried about the top end. I think the back end of it's going to be just as interesting.
Yeah, and all those guys are actually going to get opportunities. So just because you're on the back end of the bench, it might be a night in December where, hey, guess what? So-and-so's out, so-and-so's out. You're going to be called upon. You're going to get a swing.
It's going to be an interesting season for sure. And this summer's going to be mad. I think that sometimes when the team's really, really good, like they have been for the last few years, and they're super professional, so not much really comes out of the team. It's kind of like cricket's all summer long. It can get a bit boring from a content creation standpoint. This year, I think we're just going to be inundated with shit to talk about. And that's great. It's also bad because the circumstances that have led us to this point suck. But there's a lot to kind of sink our teeth into, a lot to be excited about, a lot to be nervous about. It's going to be a fun summer, man.
Yeah, don't make plans on the 4th of July. Don't make plans on, because all the time that's when these big things seem to happen right around those. Summer League's going to be great. I was actually kind of out on Summer League this year. I was like, man, I don't know if I want to watch, but now we're actually have guys that are probably not going to make the team going to play during the season, playing in Summer League. And I
Summer League's right on your back door, man. You should be going to that no matter fucking what.
I mean, after 20 years, you can only watch so much bad basketball. And let's be honest, it's very bad basketball, but it's a blast.
You don't know how privileged you are, man. With that, everybody, if you've made it all this way, make sure you hit subscribe, hit that like button, sign up to the Celtics Chronicle newsletter, and of course, go show Billy some love over on Letterboxd, where he's reviewing movies on pretty much a fucking daily basis by the sounds of it.
Oh, dude, it's like every other day. We're blowing up. CBO 041. Got some really good reviews out there right now. Check it out.
Deuces.